18, what's
Hey,
up? We're back for the study of Revelation. Right? We got John, he's exiled on the island of where?
Patmos.
Patmos, yes.
It's late. I have the laughs already.
Yes, Lanisha's got the giggles already. Maybe some bloopers here. But so we're gonna make this easy for you guys. We're gonna let Bible Project do a little recap for us, okay? Boom, 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 boom.
It begins with John the visionary transported to God's throne room, where he sees the risen Jesus as the exalted king of the world.
But Jesus is depicted as a bloody lamb.
Right. It's a design pattern showing how Jesus is the sacrificial lamb from Israel's Passover and from the Day of Atonement. He gave his life for the sins of the world. And then John sees the ultimate beastly dragon, that spiritual power that energizes violent earthly empires. It's cast out by Jesus, the world's true king.
Yeah. Now that reminds me, when I read the Revelation, I'm struck by all this cosmic destruction and violence. I mean, it happens over and over and over.
Yeah, in the Revelation, there are 3 7-part cycles of God's judgment, and it's another design pattern that connects together the stories of the flood, the 10 plagues on Egypt, and the exile to Babylon, and even more. These are moments when humans unleash so much violence and death into the world that God hands them over to self-destruction. It's like a reversal of creation in Genesis chapter 1, as God allows the world and humans to sink back into darkness and disorder.
That's sobering.
It is. But remember, in Genesis 1, God overcame darkness and chaos with his light and life. And so too in the Revelation. The death of Jesus and the death of the world as we know it is the pathway into the renewed creation that began with the resurrection of Jesus.
And so while the Revelation feels like the end of the world,
It's actually about the beginning of the renewed world, where heaven and earth are reunited and God's human images rule all creation in the love and power of God.
okay, this is a lot to take in.
It is. And there's a lot in these books that is still hard to understand, but the purpose of Apocalyptic is really clear: to give us a heavenly perspective on our earthly circumstances so that every generation of God's people can be challenged, comforted, and given hope for the future.
All right. So that brings us up to where we would be today, right? Chapter 5 through chapter 12. We're gonna skip over that. All right. I'll just give you a quick summary. It has to do with trumpets, bowls, and scrolls or seals.
Okay, trumpets, bowls, and trumpets.
Yes.
Wait.
Trumpets, bowls,
and scrolls.
Scrolls, yes.
Sorry.
So essentially, these are being opened and they represent some crazy thing happening that are signs of the end of when Jesus finally returns. And these are like crazy things that are happening, cataclysmic events. Some have to do with more like natural disaster type events. Some people believe a lot of these have already happened. Some believe a lot of them haven't. So the jury's still out on a lot of those events, and you can get kind of crazy trying to figure out which ones have happened, which ones haven't. So we're going to get into Revelations chapter 12, which is a really important chapter in Revelation. Verse 1, we're going to start off. Let's do it. So a great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs in the agony of giving birth.
Yikes.
Wow. Then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Then the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear a child, so that he might devour the child as soon as it was born. So this is crazy. If any of you guys were at the winter retreat, I think it was like 2 years ago, where they reenacted the stars falling from the sky.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was so funny. So we're going to introduce a few of the characters we see in this. We have a woman, right, that's giving birth. Can anybody guess?
Who
Maybe
that might be?
in the chat, you could guess who that might be. So it's morning. A lot of you guys don't chat typically, so maybe there's nothing there. Maybe there is. I hope so. So get ready to chat from time to time. Who do you think the woman is? A lot of people think it's Mary, the mother of Jesus. The woman actually most likely represents God's people. So we have a dragon. Any guesses about who the dragon might be? Just, any thoughts on that? Do we? Chat below. Okay, Hope, I appreciate you. I know you put something down
chatting.
there. I'm gonna need to see some more activity, okay? Alright, who's the dragon? The Roman Empire, which basically was under the control of Satan. Alright, pretty much. So if you said Satan, we'll give you points for that. And the dragon here, it's big, meaning so powerful, right? And red, which means bloodthirsty. So powerful and out for blood. So then there's this male child, right? Who do you guys think this male child is? That's born, that the dragon wants to devour as soon as
I wonder.
he's born. Chat feature. It's on YouTube. You can type.
You can do it.
Things go up there. Yes. So it's Jesus, the Messiah. If you remember Herod, right? Herod the Great sent people to find all the kids under 2 years old, hearing that the Messiah was born, and killed all the kids that were under 2 years old. And that was what was happening in the physical world. This is what was happening in the spiritual world, is that there's this dragon that was waiting to devour him. And how that looked on earth was this King Herod basically saying, I'm going to kill all these kids that are 2 years older or younger.
Yeah.
We're going to read about this son that was born. Verse 5. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to God and to his throne. The son was taken, right? So this is like, we're skipping big jumps. So this represents Jesus already died, he was resurrected, and then he ascended into heaven. All right? In verse 6 it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, so that there she could be nourished for 1,260 days. We won't get into what those days mean, but basically the woman who represents the people of God, so now we're talking about the church, is given safety, right? We get safety. Since Jesus has ascended into heaven, right? We fled to the wilderness, which basically is our safe place. And if you look throughout the Bible, a lot of people found safety in the wilderness.
Interesting.
So, if you're a child of God, if you are a Christian, you have a spiritual protection program. Like the witness protection program. You're in the spiritual protection program. While Jesus is gone, which is really awesome. So what does this mean for all of us, right? Yeah,
Tell us.
That's,
This is all good.
Not a lot of talky, right? You want me to get to the point,
Right.
All right. Do you understand that there's a spiritual battle for your soul? Do you understand that Satan is not some mythological thing made up in some fairy tale? That Satan is real and really wants your soul, and to deceive you to think that you don't need God to win, and to deceive you to think that he's even not real.
Yeah.
Do you understand that is where the real war is? It's the spiritual battle. Your battle, my battle, it's not against people. Satan, evil, it can make us think that our battle's against another person. And trust me, people test me too. Like Dylan and Elijah we're always, no, you guys don't test me.
Oh.
But we see toxic people online, and honestly, sometimes Dylan and Elijah can be toxic too, but we won't talk about that. No, I just watch and observe. Yeah, it's just kind of, but sorry, I can be toxic, I guess. Yeah, I suppose. But we can get mad at people. That's my point. You see a toxic person, you're mad at them, you're angry at them, and we can forget. Man, so now we want to hurt another human being, another creation of God, and we forget that, man, they're not my enemy. No person is ever your real enemy. It is always Satan. So who have you been mad at lately? Who do you feel like is your enemy lately? Is it some friend beef going on? Is it some family beef? Do you feel like your parents are the enemy when it comes to this spiritual battle? Like, mom and dad, like, why are you like breathing down my neck about, church and blah, 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 right? And so we can think our parents are the enemy sometimes.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I think as a teenager, I thought for sure my mom was like the enemy, because it's not like she was necessarily shoving, religion and Christianity down my throat, but it was just kind of like, it was there. Obviously, I was still going to church, but I just wasn't interested. So I was just like, I don't want to do these things, so stop praying for me and fasting for me, please. Because I know that's what you're doing.
She actually told her mom,
so I told her to stop
praying for her.
And because I was like, I know what you're doing. Just stop. It's not going to work. Like, I want to live my life the way I want to live it.
Right.
And the crazy thing is that I ended up becoming a disciple. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, I have such an amazing relationship with her, because she's like my sister in Christ, so we can relate even on a deeper level. So I'm grateful. I'm so happy she prayed and fasted for me and didn't listen to the little, I don't know, whatever, the demon living inside of me that was just like, I hate you, So, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so, yeah, Lamisha was being influenced by darkness, by Satan. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to say that.
No,
we don't want to think that way, but that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then that's turning her against her mom, who obviously loves her, cares about her, and wants to see...
Cared about my soul.
Yeah. Like, think about it. If your parents didn't try to encourage you towards God, wouldn't that make them really unloving?
Oh, yeah.
If we're to believe, right, that there's a heaven and there's a hell, like, wouldn't your parents be, like, kind of...
negligent,
jacked up if they didn't like try to steer you towards heaven, right?
Ooh,
so I don't know, just think about that for a second. It might give you some perspective. And I wanted to ask you personally, teens, do you understand, from this passage and many others, that there's no neutral ground between following Jesus and opposing him? There's no neutral ground.
Gray area.
Yeah, there's no gray area. It is one of those things where it is light and darkness. And I know, look, I'm a millennial, so I get it. We don't like, absolutes. And I know you guys like it even less. But this is the truth, okay? And it makes sense that God would make things really clear, because it doesn't... Would it make sense for God to come to earth and he'd be like, well, here's an option. If you want to try it, check it out. If it's not your thing, don't worry about it. Like, no. It makes sense that when God came to earth, he was really clear, right? I mean, that's just how I would imagine.
Yeah, it's so clear we don't like it sometimes.
Right, exactly. But it's the truth. I would actually question Christianity if God came to earth and was like very like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of options here. Just like, what? All right, in Luke chapter 11, verse 23. So it's you're either following God, or you are against God, in so many words, right? So Luke 11:23 says, "Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters." If you are not for Jesus, you are against him. You might not think it in your mind. You might not think, I don't like Jesus. But if you are not for him, if you don't have faith in him, if you don't believe in him, if you're not following him, then you are against him. And why would that be? My answer to that is because God has made it really clear who he is, how we should live life. And he's really left it beyond any reasonable doubt. So for us to not follow him, we have to be doing that intentionally, if that makes sense. Because it's just in our faces, right?
Yeah.
I know it's in your guys' faces so much so you're like, no, make it stop. But it's in everybody. It's not just teens that grew up in church. Like, I remember being on the boardwalk in Ocean City, New Jersey, when I was 15 years old or 16 years old, and maybe it was 16 or 17, and my friends and I were drunk and we were on the boardwalk, and I remember some people coming up to me and sharing with me about Jesus, and I didn't become they're not affiliated with our church or anything like that, but I became a Christian much later. But everybody is faced with the Christian paradigm and truth at some point where they have to figure it out. So you guys might feel like, no, it's too much all the time, but like everybody has to make this decision, even if they don't grow up in church. Yeah. So, for those of you that haven't, made the decision, do you understand that you are against God right now? If you haven't made I'm not, and please hear me right. I'm not saying made the decision to be baptized. I'm talking about making the decision to follow Christ. Just try to understand that, yeah, okay, baptism's like a thing, but like the real thing we're talking about is following Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you made a decision to follow Jesus? Like, take baptism out of your heads for a second. I know that's like almost impossible for a lot of you guys, right? But like, try to take it out. Just like decision to follow Jesus, right? And if not, you are against God. Right? I know that's whoa, but it's the truth. So we're gonna keep reading here in verse 7. There's this war in heaven. It's crazy. Verse 7, it says, "And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who was called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven proclaiming, 'Now have come the salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our comrades has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. But they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they did not cling to life, even in the face of death. So when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle, so that she could fly from the serpent into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time." This is amazing. So what do we know from this? We know that the war is won. The spiritual battle has been won. And Satan is hurled down to the earth. He wants to pursue the woman that gave birth to the child. So that means that he wants to pursue would-be followers of Christ. He's not really worried about people that don't follow Christ too much, because they're already essentially doing what he wants, right? So there is this battle, that continues to rage on. But what's crazy is that the war has been won. So Satan, in his pride and in he's self-deceived, and he's trying to deceive everybody else to think that you can win another way.
Yeah.
Like, you can win some other way other than following Jesus. Like trying to tell you guys as teens, there's another way to do this other than following Jesus. And if you believe that, you've been deceived by Satan. And so, like, he's winning. Like, he's winning the battle for your souls. If you think, like, there's another way to live life, there's another way to go to heaven, there's another truth, then you've essentially been deceived by Satan, because he wants us to think there's another way to win. But for us that follow Jesus, and for you, if you desire to follow Jesus, I want to encourage you to know, and this is awesome, to know that the war is won.
Yeah.
If you're in Christ. And that's you get a confidence from that. You get a swagger from that. You get a spiritual, like, you just feel like spiritually hyped. Like, imagine the people that are on Tom Brady's team every year, right? Like, you just know if you're on Tom Brady. I know there's a lot of Tom Brady haters out there, but like, but if you're on Tom Brady's team, you know you probably got a shot at a Super Bowl. Like the Buccaneers, they talk about when Tom Brady came, it just changed the whole culture. Wow. So it gives you confidence to know that, you're rocking with Tom Brady. Now we're talking about if you're rocking with Jesus. Right? The war is won. It's done. But Satan tries to get us focused on these little battles that we fight. So it talks about how we win, right? How we can stay in the fight and win this battle ultimately. And I think this is encouraging for you guys as teens. It's encouraging for me. It's encouraging for anybody, Christian or not. It talks about we win through the blood of the Lamb. We conquer, we overcome through the blood of the Lamb. What does that mean? It means that to win, to conquer, we need to rely. What does it mean to rely? Like, rely on it like it was a crutch. Rely on it like you're relying on that ride home from school. Rely on it like you're relying for the bus to come. Well, that might not be a great example because they probably come late sometimes. But rely on it. So it's relying on the forgiveness of Jesus and the grace of God. That is what the blood of the Lamb represents. Is forgiveness for you, forgiveness for me, and continued forgiveness. Because Lamisha and I are far from perfect. You guys know this by now, I'm sure. We sin, we make mistakes, we have weaknesses. We are not perfect. Your parents are not perfect. They sin. They make mistakes. You are not perfect. You sin. You make mistakes. But we conquer through the blood of the Lamb, through relying on God's forgiveness that came in Jesus.
For me, when I say I blow it or something and I sin, I have to rely on that forgiveness, right? I'm so grateful for it that I do have the forgiveness through the blood of Christ, right? And I think for me, when I do blow it or whatever, I just sometimes gotta confess it, just kind of get it off my chest, and so I can be healed from it, you know? And to me, it's a privilege to have the opportunity to be reconciled and to have God in my life and to have grace and to rely on that. I mean, geez, because I'm just such a wreck sometimes, you know? And so I'm just really grateful to have that forgiveness and to be able to rely on God and just by even just confessing my sins and the things that I'm struggling with. So
yeah. I'll tell you guys one example. I was at GameStop a while ago, and there's a guy who's selling me these Bluetooth headphones for the PlayStation, and I went in and I said, hey, like, do you have Bluetooth headset? He's like, what system? I was like, PlayStation 5. He was like, oh, well, we only have one pair. I was like, can I see it? He was like, no, you're not allowed to touch it. I was like, can you explain it to me? What am I buying?
Right. Do you want to sell it to me?
Yeah, but then I kind of I lost it a little bit. And I was like, hey man, are you all right? Like, in a way that was like, I didn't really care if he was all right. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I was like, are you all right? He was like, what? I was like, yeah, man, I don't understand why you're being so disrespectful right now. Like, I'm coming in here, I'm trying to buy something. Like, what's wrong with you? He was like, and he kind of like got quiet. He was like, and he just sold it to me, and it was weird. It was weird. I felt horrible leaving GameStop.
Yeah, he called me.
I called my wife. I talked to her. I confessed. I got open about it, and then I was like, I got to go back in there and apologize to this guy. And so I didn't even leave the parking lot. I went back into GameStop, and I was like, hey, man, I just want to apologize. It's hard right now. We're in pandemic. We're grouchy. I was like, but you deserve to be treated with respect, and I didn't treat you that way, and I want to apologize to you. And he immediately brightened up, and he was like, I'm so sorry too, man. I wasn't being right. I was being a jerk, and I'm sorry. And it was like this amazing moment. You know, I could have come in and said sorry, and he just could have been like, weirdo, you know. But he was like, no, I'm sorry too.
Oh,
you know, it's like my bro at GameStop now. You know, like, it's just awesome. And so I blew it. I made a mistake, but I feel like confessing, talking to Lamisha, and then going back and apologizing, like, it was my way of relying on the forgiveness of Jesus. That I know that God forgives me, and that gave me the strength, you know, to apologize. You know, for you guys, what does it look like for you to rely on the forgiveness of Jesus? What does it look like for you to rely on the grace of God? And, you know, we've been doing these studies for a little bit, you know, in Revelations, and I would love for you guys to, like, hit us up or reach out to us or let us know how we can help you follow Jesus. Right. You know, I know it's like, baptized, like, okay, relax. Like, just, if you want to follow Jesus, you know, think about it like that. So, you know, I don't believe this generation, your generation's given up on God or given up on faith or doesn't believe. I know you guys believe that you're meant for something special in this world, and I didn't realize what it was for me until I started following Jesus. And I would love to be a part of partnering with God in His scriptures and helping you figure that out as well. It's one of the greatest joys, like, of my life to be a part of that journey, and it's a very humbling thing. So we're here for you, as you guys already know. So let us know how we can help. Lastly, just overcome, right? Overcome this battle. We got a war going on. It's spiritual. Don't forget who your real enemy is. Don't make people the enemy. And remember that the war is won in Christ. We don't need to be scared of anything. We are good. So walk around with that swagger. Walk around with that security that comes from knowing God. Love you guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Bye, guys.